And welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. We are back for a brand new series as 2024 season is officially underway. If you take into account draft, free agency, it's all began as we look forward to another season in the NFL. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, here for series 4 of the podcast. And I'm here with a returning guest. You may know him from the Magpie channel. You may know him from Panthers Magpie if you're a keen Twitter and Instagram user. Back with me today is the Magpie channel's Keg. Keg, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Andy. Thank you very much for having me on again. Not really looking forward to talking Panthers football, but general NFL stuff. 2024 off-season up and running now. Free agency draft coming up. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's been another exciting off season. I think there's been a lot of moves. I think we'll talk about that later on, but particularly the running back position has just been a crazy
Mm.
time for it. So many have moved on, and it's been what we love about the NFL is that even though the season is only 7, 8 months long, even less if you're around of a team that has a losing season. But I think the free agency, the draft, all that stuff makes it pretty much 24/7 all year round sort of sport. So thanks for those kind of things. It keeps us busy, keeps us with things to talk about, and that's what we're doing today. So, of course, this is the first of our new series, which, as it was last, excuse me, last year as well, it will be a free agency based episode. So me and Keg have both, prior to recording this episode, gathered our top three signings of the off season each. It could be free agency, it could be via trade, and now I'll give some talking points to discuss the latest goings on in the NFL. Before we do go on to obviously our top threes, there was the retirement from Jason Kelce as well as Fletcher Cox, two big Eagles legends. I think they were as much on the field as off the field, important parts of this Eagles locker room. So, how much do you think that could potentially affect them? But also just your take on two absolute legends for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm sure it's disappointing for them. But you do kind of move on in this game, and the Eagles are a brilliant team regardless. They seem like a very well run franchise. Like the head coach came under a little bit of questioning during last year. They hit a little bit of a sticky patch. I think they've got a brilliant GM, and the owner kind of seems to get it as well. So yeah, it's unfortunate, especially from an NFL like outsider Eagles fan. But yeah, I think Kelsey's going to be a miss, but I'm sure it's not going to be the last of him. I think you see a bit more of Kelsey's personality, like on social media or on his podcast. So I'm sure that'll never go away. He'll not be too far from our screens. I'm sure he'll probably get a job at ESPN or somewhere on a network. Like he's got the personality to do it. On the field, yeah, I'm sure he's going to be a big miss, and it might take a little while, especially for someone so long serving as well. It might take the Eagles a little while to find a true replacement if they ever can. And Fletcher Cox as well, yeah, a brilliant D lineman in the NFL, long term player, long term servant for the Eagles. So yeah, I'm sure they'll miss him, but I think the D line's one thing that the Eagles have been good at drafting and getting free agents as well. Like they've been very good at kind of replacing them guys and building that team. They've got a couple of really young guys in there, like Jordan Davies, and it was the one that went last year, Jalen Carter. Like that, yeah, they've got a strong D line. So yeah, I think Cox will be a little bit easier to replace than Kelce will be, but nonetheless, still big misses.
Yeah, I think going back to Kelce, I think that he is. I think it's most obvious. If you're some players, you don't know whether what they can do, whether they're going to coaching, whether they can. But I think with Jason Kelce, I think he's already sort of established himself as TV is going to be his or media is going to be his route, and I think that you look at what he's doing already with his brother on his podcast, New Heights, but also I think you're right. I think in terms of TV networks, I think he reminds me of like the Shannon Sharps and the Michael Irvins in terms of very loud and very, but also very knowledgeable. So I
Yeah.
think that if as long as he can do all that, then I think he is perfect. I think same with Travis Kelce, to be honest. Maybe he's more down the acting or TV side of things in terms of you saw him on SNL, but Jason Kelce
Mhm.
certainly, I think, like Pat McAfee as well, he'll be on some sort of American football network within a year or two. I think it may be even less. But of course,
Yeah.
another massive retirement happened this week with Aaron Donald. Of course, teased it a couple of
Yeah.
years ago when he won a Super Bowl, but it's been confirmed, and I remember people thinking he might go to Hollywood. There's a lot of talk about that, but again, for me personally, I think he is the second best defensive player of all time. I think for me, only really Lawrence Taylor, I think personally, can be seen as a better player than Donald. But I think Donald, I think there's a we talked about it on another podcast where the best example you can have to show his career and how good he was, show his stats, and then show a picture of him. Most snaps, you'll have about three or four guys double covering him, and I think that is the biggest testament
Yeah.
you can have, and the biggest that he has done all these sacks he's made and all this stuff he's done in his career whilst being double teamed every single snap and doing it with a lot of effect. So what a career! Of course, Super Bowl champion, made the Super Bowl winning play, and also really I think should have won Super Bowl MVP that in that game. But what a career he's had, Keg, just unbelievable.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to hear him retire, and I know he did tease it a couple of years ago, but I think a lot of people do that, especially after a Super Bowl win. Like I know, like Jason Kelce's been teasing it for a good while now. And if who else? Like a lot of people kind of think they're going to retire, like Tom Brady did retire, then didn't retire, even teased it for a couple of years beforehand. But yeah, how old is Donald again? He's not really that old, is he? He's only sort of around about the 30 mark, 31, something like that.
Let
I
me
think I
check.
might be completely wrong. But yeah, I did think he would have had at least a couple more years left in him.
So he is 32 and had 10 seasons in the NFL. So
32, 10 seasons. Like, it is like, especially on the D line or the O line, they're probably the hardest positions to play, like in terms of like physicality, because every single snap, like it's like a sort of defensive back or a receiver. Like sometimes, like obviously the players don't always come to you. Sometimes
mm,
you're standing there as a decoy on a running play or something like that. But D line and O line, every single play, you're clattering into somebody. Like it's every single snap. Like it's tough, it's physical, it must put a real strain on your body, so it's not rare for a player of like 31, 32 to retire, but just kind of still being at his peak, like physically he may be starting to feel the effects of it. He hasn't really shown it on the field, but yeah, something physical within him must be telling him that it's time to retire, or do you risk playing another 2 or 3 years and then really start to suffer with some injuries? Because yeah, going back to Jason Kelce, like I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Amazon, but he showed like the arthritis in his hands, and he was like 35 or something, and his hands are absolutely done in. He's got like the hands of like a 90-year-old, like just because that's like the physicality of playing on O line or D line. Like the strain that it puts on your body is just absolutely mental. So to be able to get to 35 or beyond playing on either side of the ball, fair play to you, because yeah, your body must just be absolutely battered.
yeah, I agree completely. And I think we look as well the fact that the stats go there's 3% of high school kids get to play in college football, and then 2 or 3% of college players get to play in the NFL. The average length of an NFL player is 3 years long. So if you can have a 10-year NFL career, or as
Mm.
Tom Brady had 20 or year, Peyton Manning had
Yeah.
15, 20 years as well, that that shows just how good an athlete you are, and the fact that you are, especially as you say, with Aaron Donald and as the defensive line position where you are playing every snap, or and it's a bruising position, and same with I think we saw with one of your boys, Luke Kuechly, he retired maybe the other
Mm.
side of the things, maybe too early. But again, you can see exactly what strain the body has on defensive players, and yeah, I think Donald will. I think it's a very clear first ballot Hall of Famer. Anyway, we digress. We'll go on. We're going to give our top three each. Three off-season editions of the off-season so far. And this could be case where we have both have the same person. You never know, but we'll go from here. So, Keg, your number three.
For my number three, I've picked this sort of mainly. It was a trade. It wasn't from free agency, but I've picked it mainly because of the capital, what it was in the trade, and I've gone with Justin Fields to the Steelers, who could be a bit of a controversial one. I know he's like some people are either on one side of the fence with Justin Fields or on the other. They either think that he's rubbish, he's not an NFL quarterback, and he never will be. I'm on the other side where I think that he's still young enough and I think he's good enough. Just being in a really bad situation at the Bears. I was a fan of him in college. I watched a lot of him at Ohio State. I was a little bit disappointed for him that he went to the Bears because I knew that was not going to be a good matchup for him, especially at that time, the 2021 draft. The Bears were awful. So yeah, I felt a little bit bad for him that he had to go to the Bears. Even on draft night, he didn't crack a smile, so it didn't look like he really wanted to go there either. I don't know if I'm reading into that a little bit too much, but yeah, he's just been in an awful time. He just had an awful time there, and they tried to build around him, bringing him the likes of DJ Moore. But yeah, the journey with the Bears just wasn't great. And he's still young, and I like him. A lot of people say he's just a running back. Yes, he made some mistakes in Chicago. I've seen a few plays where receivers were getting open and the ball wasn't coming to him. They looked like they were getting frustrated with him not looking up and reading the plays. But I think he just didn't have any trust, and I can't really blame him. He probably did have trust issues in his O-line and receivers. So any kind of gap that opened up to run, which is his probable strength, then I think he was taking that opportunity. So yeah, I think the Steelers giving up a 2025 sixth round conditional pick could rise to a fourth. I'm not really sure what the conditions are, but if it is only a sixth round future draft pick, then that's nothing. Like that is absolute peanuts for a guy that could be as good as he is. I think the Bears have traded up to pick him in the 2011 draft. I think they moved up from like 20 to 12. But even as far as 12, like I wanted him. The Panthers were sitting at 8th in that draft, and we were desperate for a quarterback. Like my hope was that Trey Lance would fall to 8 because I felt like Fields probably would have gone to the 49ers a little bit earlier. The fact that he went down to 8, I was so surprised when Commissioner Goodell got up on the podium, said the Carolina Panthers pick. I was like, yes, the Justin Fields, but it was JC Horn. I was like, you are joking me. I couldn't believe that we were so desperate for a quarterback. The guy that I wanted was there. Obviously, we weren't going to get Trevor Lawrence, so my next best pick would have been Justin Fields. Didn't think in a million years he would fall down to 8th. He did, and we passed on him. So yeah, the fact that he went to 12th, 12th overall pick just 3 years ago, and they traded a whole ton of capital to move up from 20 to 12 to take him, and they've traded him for a conditional 6th round 2025 pick. Like, I think the Steelers have done really, really well to get him and to put him alongside Russell Wilson as well, who they got in free agency for 1.2 million. So incredible business. 2 quarterbacks there, absolutely insane business from the Steelers. So yeah, fair play to them for getting that business done.
Yeah, and I think for them as well, it's sort of a win-win because obviously Wilson's be there as a starter. He's already been confirmed as a starter, but he's got a guy feels who can take a year or two just to learn off Wilson. And I think all he gets stick about off the field in terms of people say he's a bit cringe or whatever, but I think as a model professional, he is up there. So I think he'll learn a lot from him. Wilson. Let's not forget if you obviously Broncos time recently biased. A lot of people are going to remember his time at Denver not being too great, but at the Seahawks every year he was talking about being an MVP contender. Every year he was everyone talking about is he going to get that final vote for MVP and stuff like that. So I think people are quick to forget how good he was for Seattle, and I think that even his worst season in Seattle or Denver is I'd imagine just as good if not better than most Steelers quarterback seasons the last pretty much since Ben Roethlisberger went down the other end of his career and declined through age. But I think the Bears have got a really obviously great situation for them because people saying they've maybe not got enough for Field, but at the same time they've signed Keenan Allen for a 4th round pick trade. DeAndre Swift come in 3-year deal, $24 million as a running back, and they're still going to have the 1st overall pick and the 9th overall pick, and you think they're going to get obviously I think we all know it's going to be Caleb Williams #1 overall. They've got their new quarterback, one of the best prospects really since Trevor Lawrence in terms of college prospects, and so they've got him to come in, and then also you look at they can get either the 9th overall pick, they can get another receiver for Williams, or they can even go down the route of getting a offensive line help, or they can go down the route of defensive players. So I think the Bears, and I've not checked the cap, but when I last checked, they were something like 4th or 5th best cap room. They're high up on the salary cap track as well. So yeah, I think the Bears have really, if they can nail this draft and I think they're a team that I think could really be a team that one of those teams that goes from 4th to 1st in their division. And I think they could be a prime contender. But Before we go on to my number three, quick take on the 2021 quarterback draft class. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, if you exclude
Yeah.
him, you've got Mac Jones, traded to the Jags this offseason. Zach Wilson is rotting away at the Jets. Fields has been traded. It's just been, I think, really look back now, an horrendous quarterback draft class from 2021.
Yeah, and quite a surprising one as well, because yeah, like they said in 2021, the Panthers needed a quarterback, and I optimistically hoped that one of them would fall down to us. Didn't I think Mac Jones was probably the only one who realistically would have still been there at 8, even though I think that would have been a reach. Like I don't think Mac Jones would have been worth the top 10 pick, but it doesn't really seem like anyone was. Like, yeah, Lawrence has had his struggles with the Jags, but I'm a big fan of Trevor Lawrence, Clemson fan, so I believe he's still good, and he will be. Let's say Caleb Williams is probably the best draft prospect since him coming out of college. Trevor Lawrence was just absolutely insane. But yeah, the rest of them, like Trey Lance, obviously major bust because I think the
Hmm.
49ers traded up pre-draft to go up to third and get their quarterback. And yeah, Zach Wilson, I don't really know what the hype about Zach Wilson was, to be honest. If I was gonna I've probably done plenty of mock drafts. If I was doing it, I probably would have had Fields as the second best quarterback. Should have gone to the Jets. Um, Probably Lance would have been my third choice, so still would have gone to the 49ers. Uh, and Zach Wilson, I don't even know if I really would have had him much higher than Mac Jones, to be honest. But yeah, they obviously seen something that they liked in him, and they put the second overall pick into him. Big mistake. Is he still at the Jets? They haven't moved on from him, is he?
Yeah,
He's
he's
still
still there, but I think they're
Aaron Jones is
giving
Aaron
permission
Rodgers' quarterback.
to seek a trade because I think they signed, I believe Tyrod Taylor he signed recently, and also they got Aaron
Mm.
Rodgers. So yeah, I think they're moving on. But
Yeah, he's done, isn't he? Yeah.
who's going to want him? You going to at the backup? You could argue maybe get him in, but I think certainly as a starter, his days are numbered. Um,
Yeah,
but you never
definitely.
know.
He'd be lucky.
But I will say Baker Mayfield was doubted, went to the Buccaneers, and now he signed, with 2 year, signed a new deal, 3 years, I believe it is as well. He had a real resurgence, but I think at the same time, even though obviously they've also gone out and got Mike Evans on a 2 year, £52 million extension, and Winfield on the franchise tag. But I think the Buccaneers situation with Baker Mayfield is probably an exception because he actually had some good moments before this, whereas Zach Wilson, I don't think I
Yeah.
can think of a single moment in his NFL career where I've gone, wow, this guy's good. And I was saying at the time, I don't know whether it was on this podcast or whether it was just with friends or whatever, but people were, it's the same thing every my issue with the combine is that people watched him throw that day and thought he was going to be amazing. They thought he was Patrick Mahomes 2.0. Even, but everyone forgets that. I've said it before on the podcast that NFL combines are just people throwing with no pressure on them. They're throwing to
Yeah.
receivers in free space with no one sort of in one-on-one coverage with them. So people, I think we're seeing even now. I think people like a few players not even turning up to combine. I think Sean McVay didn't even turn up to the combine to watch. But I think they're now realizing that the combine is very flawed. But people were viewing that Zach Wilson tape and thinking he was going to be a worthy second overall pick. But yeah, it hasn't worked out for him. And yeah, Trey Lance, what a disaster that was. My number three is Daniil Hunter, who has moved from the Vikings to the Texans.
Yeah.
The guy that finished fifth in the league last season in total sacks, and he was leading for a lot of last year. To get him on a fairly 2 year, I think it's 2 years, $49 million. I think that Texans, who I think we all know about, over that week. I think we've already got Will Anderson there, a defense that was improving, but I think add someone like Daniil Hunter to this Texans defense, and it's exciting time. I think they've had a really good offseason, Houston. So for me, I
Yeah.
think Daniil Hunter is a great signing. And I think that he adds something just an extra bit of scariness to that team. And I think again they've signed him really on a very very short sort of low deal. It's not we've seen people like Titan signing Ridley for 4 years, $92 million and all that, and obviously we saw Kirk do it a couple of years ago as well. And I don't and Christian Wilkins going for over $100 million on the 4 year deal to the Raiders, and I think we're seeing some massive deals. But to get him, one of the best players in the league last year defensively, to get him for that cheaper deal, I think Texans deserve a lot of credit um, in that. And then my number two is a player that everyone knows my feelings on. I absolutely love the guy. Derrick Henry has gone to the Baltimore Ravens,
Mhm.
2 years, $60 million. could go up to $20 million, 9 million guaranteed. And I think that for me, why I love this is that the Ravens, they've also gone out and signed Madubuike for 4 years, $98 million, re-signing him, extending him. I think with Henry, I think that whilst we all look at Lamar Jackson as the main runner, but really look at their running backs, it's not really they're all just a bunch of okay guys. I don't think there's anyone there. I think if Dobbins could stay fit, you could maybe put him in there, but he just can't stay healthy. And I think that the AFC title game against the Chiefs only had 8 carries the whole game for any running back. So running back, I think, despite Lamar Jackson being there, I think is a position they needed to address. And getting Henry in,
Mhm.
we all know he's declining, but he's still on over 1,000 yards last year, and he's still, on his day, a great player. So I think getting him in, especially if you need a short run game as well, he's the guy for that as well. And I think that when you're getting someone like him in, it shows your intentions and show you've almost learned from your mistakes maybe last year. I love the signing. I think that he is finally going to a team that is a contender, which I know he was at the Titans, but they were still contenders as like as shocked. I don't think anyone had them down as number one seed in the AFC a couple of years ago. No one had him in the AFC title game in 2019. So I think now he's going to a team where he's gone out and he's going to try and get his ring, try and get a Steve Bowl, and I think that he really helps Lamar Jackson. I think it really helps both parties. So for
Yeah.
me, I love this signing, and I think he's going to be an instant hit. May only be for 1 year; they may only get 1 year out of him, but if that means you're making Super Bowls and winning them, then that's worth it, especially for how cheap he's gone for. But for you, Keg, who is your number two on your list?
Well, I couldn't really decide between my number one and number two. So I'll go with you because he was potentially going to be my number one, but because you've said it, I'll agree with you, and I'll go with Derrick Henry as well. And I've gone with him because mainly for the value. Is it 2 year, 16 million? I know there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years about the running back market. They're not valued very highly. There's been like a lot of contract conversations, like with was it Saquon Barkley and a couple of others wanted much bigger contracts that teams just weren't willing to pay. But Derrick Henry, like you say, he is declining. He's getting a little bit older and had a couple of injuries, so he's not the player that he was like 2 and 3 years ago. But he's still a beast. He's still King Derrick. He's just give him half a chance to run through a defense and he'll do it. He's just an absolute animal. So yeah, for 8 million a season, 9 million guaranteed, 16 over 2 years, max value of 20 million. I think that for a player as good as Derrick Henry is insane. I just think that the value of it is what would put him at either first or second, in my opinion. As you say, it takes the pressure off Lamar Jackson as well, instead of having him run through defenses and getting himself hurt. Like, that's just a big concern for me about Lamar Jackson. And I think probably Josh Allen as well. Like, Josh Allen, like, kind of runs, like, at least, like, Jackson kind of dances around it. Like, he's got, like, a flow to him. He's like water. He's just easy, just dances around. So much agility. But Josh Allen just powers through people. And if I was, like, a Bills or a Ravens fan, I'd be like, oh, my God, he's going to get himself hurt. I watched it for many years with Cam Newton, but thankfully he avoided mainly them injuries, just kind of got them, unfortunately, later on in his career. But yeah, for Lamar Jackson, like, he's won the MVP again last year. He doesn't need to be running through people. Get a big guy, get Big Derek behind you. Just hand the ball off to him. Stop trying to do everything yourself. It's like, stop being like a Justin Fields. He's a brilliant quarterback. He's got a fantastic arm. Let the arm do the work and Derrick Henry do the run. Like, yeah, I think it's a match made in heaven. And like I say, for the value, incredible.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think it's going to be they could once again be a team that's going to be there contending with the Chiefs and who else wants to get involved. Sticking with you, Keg, but who is your number one on your list?
Yeah, this one, again, a potentially controversial one. I don't really like it because of the contract. It's a lot of money. And it's something that you might be able to talk about a little bit more, as you did mention him before. And I've gone Christian Wilkins.
Oh.
I think mainly for the Raiders, because I'm sure it's a good deal for Christian Wilkins because the bag is heavy, and I'm sure that's what persuaded him. Once he hit the free agency market, like, I thought he would maybe even re-sign with the Dolphins, because the Dolphins are a great team and kind of thereabouts, pushing to be one of the better teams in the league. But yeah, if he wasn't going to re-sign with the Dolphins, I thought it would be like Chiefs, 49ers, Eagles, Ravens, like Bills, like someone there to compete. Even Bengals, maybe like someone who aren't too far off, like kind of being contenders. But the Raiders just aren't it for me. And he puts in well, like he's gone to fit in between Max Crosby, Tyree Wilson, like insane D line that they've got going on there. So amazing pick for the Raiders. And I'm assuming that they probably just threw the biggest bag at him, and that's why he's gone there. Otherwise, he probably could have gone to a better team. Maybe it's just the Raiders just paid him higher. So, yeah, I think for the Raiders, particularly, especially, that's why I put Wilkins there. Maybe not the best matchup for Wilkins himself, but the Raiders getting someone as good as him in to go along with their already pretty good D line. Brilliant. But yeah, I'll hand it over to you here and let me know if you think the value is worth it. 4 year, 110 million contract, 27.5 per year, 84.75 guaranteed. That's a lot of money. Would you be happy if the Dolphins signed him for that?
No. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the guy. I think he's a big miss, but the kind of money he's sort of wanting. I mean, we talk about later on, but Brian Burns has gone for just slightly less than that from your boys to the Giants, and I think that he's good, but I think that I think they have overpaid. I think whilst I was shocked he went there, but at the same time, you know, look at him the way he's shouting Raiders, on their socials. I think he seems like a perfect fit for that kind of Raiders sort of kind of attitude the fans
Yeah.
have. But I think his stats actually went down a little bit last time. I'm just going to try and find him now because he um, he had 9 sacks in 2020. Oh, he had way more sacks actually. Ignore what I just said. 9 sacks in 2023. His tackles were slightly down, but yeah, I think that he was a great part of our defense alongside Bradley Chubb and Jaden Phillips and Zach Steele, and I think that we are going to miss that, especially with our injury record. But I do question whether he is worth paying that much. I think if you go for like 75 mil, 65 mil, I'd be like, fair enough, that's good value. But I think maybe 4 years, 110 mil is quite a lot. But at the same time, I
Hmm.
think add him to a D line which features Max Crosby, that might be one of the best D lines in the league now. And I think the Raiders, again, I'm surprised he didn't go to a contender because I know you think he would want to. You think any player would want to go and try and chase the trophies, but as we see with a lot of players in the NFL, they don't do that. They care about money. It's probably down to a lot
Yeah.
of it down to the fact that it's not a guarantee you're going to be there next year. The injury risk, it's almost like danger money. You see some people having jobs. So for me, I think that I don't blame him. I think you ask anyone in any kind of line of work, right, do you want to get paid 80 mil or do you want to pay 120 mil? You're going to say 120 mil, aren't you? So for me, I don't blame him, but I think the Raiders maybe slightly overpaid. Um,
Yeah, I could agree with that.
so for my number one, I've gone for a little bit of like a cheat here. It's not actually technically one player. I've just gone for anything Pittsburgh's done. I think their whole offseason is me a winner. We talk about Russell Wilson Fields. I mean, how cheap they've got for this year alone is amazing. And considering
Mhm.
that, yeah, how bad their quarterback room has been, I think that Adam Wilson, who hasn't been great the last 2 years, but I think he definitely improved last year under with Peyton. And I think now he's at, same as Fields, now they're at stable organizations. I think Steelers are, for me, they're the best organization in the league in terms of stability. I think them and the Packers, you could say it for, they're just both, every year, they're always there and thereabouts. There's a reason why the Packers had 3, 4 quarterbacks in 70 years, whatever it's been, with Favre Rodgers, and then obviously then Jordan Love. And I think that with the same thing with the Steelers, they've had 3 head coaches in 50 years. Tom has been there for 15,
Yeah,
20
something
years.
like that.
I forget the guy before, but he was there for a long time. And I think that it's a very stable. And I think if I was taking my Dolphins bias out of the way, if I took it to any team, it'd be Pittsburgh Steelers because they're just such a well-run, organized team. And I think as a player,
Mhm.
you don't want to go to a dysfunctional franchise. You want to go to one that's going to look after you, especially when you're young. So I think to get them to win on such short deals is amazing, and to get also Patrick Queen in, for
Yeah.
only about $41 million, 3 years, and then get the Sean Elliott in as well. And I think that they, for me, have had the best off season. I think by some way now. The one thing that could go against them is that if there's some sort of dynamic between Fields and Wilson, if somehow it gets a bit tense in the locker room, but
Mm.
Wilson doesn't appear the guy that would do that, and Fields, I think, is just happy just to get out of Chicago. So for me, I think that because they made the playoffs last year with Mason Rudolph, with Kenny Pickett, who we've already seen now has gone to the Eagles, traded away already. To
Yeah.
get make the playoffs with such poor quarterbacks, to get these two quarterbacks in, and also to get a defensive player like Queen, who's one of the best, I think, in his position, especially for his age, to get him in,
Mhm.
as well as TJ Watt, as well as everyone else in this Steelers defense. I think they've had a tremendous offseason. I think that they are. I think they should be looking at least a divisional round, maybe even at a stretch even more. Maybe they could make the AFC game. I think they've done everything they can to try and compete, and I love what they've done. Um, Before we do go, though, we have only got 7 minutes left of the recording. But before we do go, just quickly some other news. Obviously, Josh Jacobs has gone to the Packers. Mentioned Paul Barkley's gone to the Eagles. Other ones as well. Mentioned Mac Jones, Austin Eckler, and Zach Coates both gone to the Commanders. And looking at other news as well, the Vikings have signed Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones. The Saints have signed Chase Young. The Giants have signed Brian Burns, and that's really a segue into my final question to you. The Panthers, you signed Robert Hunt to a $100 million
Yes.
deal. You signed Brian, you let Brian Burns go, but you signed Clavon Chason, Jordan Fuller. Um, I think his name's Damian Lewis. I think one of them was as well. And um,
Yeah.
for you, Keg, just a word on your Panthers off season so far.
Good, but there's a long way to go after last season's catastrophic year. There's a lot of holes to fill. Obviously, we lost Brian Burns and Frankie Louvu to free agency, and like I think Louvu's a massively underrated player. He's going to be hard to replace. Jeremy Chin left as well. A bunch of like important defensive players, and that's how we were trying to revamp our team. Like that was the only thing kind of going for us. Von Bell got released as well, so there's a ton of holes to fill. There was on the offense. I think with Hunt and Lewis, we've filled in the O line well. That was a huge need. We dipped into the Steelers market to take Deontay Johnson. Good move, decent trade package. So I'm happy to get him in. So yeah, offense is building well, and I think we're going to continue to do that through the draft. Got 2 early second round picks and a bunch of receivers to potentially take. Yeah, the defense, yeah, it's looking like there's a lot more holes in it than there was this time last year. But we've got a good defensive coordinator who I trust, and a lot of these guys that we have picked up have played under him before, so he fits his scheme. Whereas a bunch of people like Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin didn't really last year. They had down years because of the defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, and yeah, he's bringing in guys that he knows. So I trust Evero, and whatever he does, that we'll see how it goes. But yeah, after last year, we can only get our hopes up so high.
It's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think what you're saying is a bit similar to ourselves. Our situation is that we've lost people like Andrew Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker, obviously Wilkins, and a few others. But I think, I think what we've done as well, we've signed guys, new DC in that's his name's completely passed me by. But I think getting his own guys in, I think is really going to help. And I think sometimes I think we see it even with our version of football. Sometimes you can pay £100 million for a player like Caicedo, or you can pay £60 million for Endo, and as long as he's the right fit, I think price tag goes out the
Mm-hmm.
window. That's why you see Man U and Chelsea buying all these players, and none of them working
Yeah,
out.
they just don't
Whereas
fit. Yeah.
people like Brighton are signing players from next to no one, but if they're the right fit,
Mm.
then it works so much better. So I think with the NFL teams, I think that's a big part of it. Is make sure you got your guy. I think if you're the guys calling the plays, you're DC or the OC or even a head coach, you want guys that you trust. You want guys that you know
Yeah.
can do what you want and play your schemes and all that. So I think for me, I think that's all you can ask for. As long as I think Vic Fangio last year, that was part of the problem. A great coordinator, and he was good for us at times. But from what you've heard on all the sort of paper talk, as they say, not a lot of players got on with him. So I think,
Mm.
yeah, that goes a long way. Trust and knowing, liking your players and getting on with them. That's the most important thing. But that is where we'll end this episode for today. Hope you enjoyed our new start to our new series. And thank you once again for Keg for coming on today.
Not a problem, mate. Thank you very much for having me on once again. Always happy to do it at any time.
Always a pleasure. And you'll be hearing Keg if we do our season previews this year. That's still TBC at the moment because of time constraints. But if we get to do it and we do Panthers season preview, you know this guy will be on our podcast coming on once again. And of course, if you're a Newcastle fan or football fan, do check out Keg's work on the Magpie channel. A lot of social media content coming out recently, loving the visual content, and also Panthers Magpie as well. If you are a Panthers fan in the UK, or just even just a Panthers fan, or just an NFL fan, go check out his work on Instagram and Twitter as well. But in the meantime, this has been our Across the Pod NFL special on the free agency period. I've been Andy, this has been Kate, and we will see you guys next time.